بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه أما بعد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. This is some reflections, lessons, quick takeaways from an encounter that I just had briefly ago. Today is Wednesday, August the 12th, 2026. And although this is not a new experience to anyone who is melanin abundant and shares dark complexion, but today was an interesting turn of events where a behavior that is perpetuated by adults is going to be absorbed and practiced and propagated by children, because naturally children learn from adults, so they do not indoctrinate adults, but they are indoctrinated by adults. So although it's not excused for anyone of any age, but perhaps this phenomenon experience is going to be perceived differently than this behavior just being critiqued by an adult to an adult. So anyhow, I went to the masjid that I grew up in, and I have been such a long time attendee. No one currently on the board of the masjid lived in the time that not only this masjid was open, but I was an attendee from childhood, adolescence. Some of the board members were not married nor had any children at the time this masjid was open that I got to be a part of, obviously attending with adults, my father. So I'm not a person that's just unfamiliar with it, nor do I think what is about to be said should be disconsidered because of my long-term attendance of it. I have attended not just as a muqtadi, as one who prays behind the imam. I have been in the mihrab and led salawat. I have given khutbahs. I have taught adult classes. I have taught children who are older than the one that I'm about to relate the incident that happened. So the reason I mentioned this is not that I deserve any, honorable preferential treatment, but I'm saying if this is something that's easily perpetuated to someone of my quote-unquote tenure in the masjid, imagine what would have been done to someone who is unknown and unfamiliar. So I needed to pray Salatul Dhuhr long after the congregation ended, and since it's between hours of daily prayer, the masjid doors were locked, and we have, alhamdulillah, an outdoor tent where it is accessible at any time of day if the masjid door is locked. So I went in there to pray. As soon as I came from the entrance of the tent, there were some young children, some in elementary age, some in middle and high school. And as I'm dressed this way, mind you, these were my pajamas. I just woke up, left the house for an appointment. So I walk in this way, and the youngest of she was not the youngest, but the second youngest of the 6 who were there, initially told the rest of them who were there, who hail from a particular country, but because the language is well known after what I say, it's gonna give it away. But my point is not to address them, although they are not free from blame, but it's to show the impact of a value. So anyway, the youngest of the girls there, and second youngest of all, she said that a person of black complexion in her language has come, Kala. So I know this this behavior was learned from far older than her, because I've heard this term before she was ever born from people who are perhaps even older than her own parents. But to take it as a teaching moment to show that, one, she is not deserving of blame as an adult would get, but she is also not excused, because if you allow this, it's only going to grow. And I told her, me Kalani hai, me Musulman hai, me Somali hai, and her eyes were so big. I'm telling you, my goal was not to make her apologize to me, but I went to the back of that tent. From the second I told her that, until I was done with my salah, she did not get her eyes off of me, showing that she did not expect this person to understand what she said. So these were just some quick observations and lessons that were drawn. This one is, this message is not being said because it hits close to home, being a person of African descent and dark complexion. There are people in this world who share the same complexion. You could, two fair skin of the same ethnic group or the same nationality can treat each other with disdain, with disrespect, with insult, with not racism, because race is a social construct, but they can treat each other with prejudice. So the key thing to come back to is that it's a value, right? However, before I talk about that, is to also mention, as I didn't think I was gonna have to bring up new content on this subject, because in Ramadan I started recording a project that is the longest I've ever done for any subject, 4.5 hours, which is on my channel. But the thing is that this behavior is not going to go away easily, and yes, it is not only hyper practiced against blacks or Africans, but it is also hyper excused. I think people have the least appetite and they have the least intolerance to it, as if, yeah, it shouldn't happen to anybody, but if it happens to them, big deal. But the thing is, if you have a value, let's say someone calls themselves honest, they say they're truthful. So in every single encounter in life, you have to exercise the truth. You don't get to choose a circumstance where you can lie. There's no such thing as a white lie or a black lie, or a lie is a lie. Al-ikhbaru bi khilaf al-waqi'. To relay information that is not in coordinates with reality. So similarly, if someone claims they're against dhulm and oppression, they are against treating people inhumanely, then that is going to be exercised no matter what category of people you deal with, no matter what their ethnicity is, their age demographic, their income level, even their religion. You're going to have to treat them fairly, and you're going to have to be free of injustice. So anyone who claims this, I don't know a person who publicly describes himself and say, I'm unjust, I'm unfair, I'm an oppressor, I don't care about any human's rights. I mean, if there are people like that, then definitely you wouldn't take them as someone who should be around. But nobody's going to describe themselves that way. They will say, I'm a fair person, I'm a truthful person, I'm an honest person, I'm a caring person, I'm a well-mannered person. And then this young girl, she is free of sin. She's not even at the age of takalif yet. There's no sin on her. But she learned this behavior from adults who practice this privately, bar none. This is not like a public webinar, seminar, class, how to be a racist bigot. This was done in private, and it was perpetuated, and she learned it from adults. So now the question is, that adult, bar none, is not only going to practice this bigotry with her children or their children or young children, they're going to practice this behavior also with adults. So the thing is here, if adults see this and one, They don't need a world caliber education to know that this is something intolerable. Especially if you say the Shahada La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. However, uh, even even if a person didn't get the memo, they never dealt with these people, beyond the word and its implication, this word is said particularly, kala, is what? For discriminatory practices, and to assert oneself um, as if they have superiority over them. So the thing is, what I'm trying to show about that is, where are adults of that same culture, of that same nationality, of that same ethnicity, who heard this term practice when they talk with each other? You're not going to talk your home language with people who don't understand it, correct? You're going to talk to people of the same nationality who speak that language, correct? So where are those who spoke against it? I think this is the crux of breaking any uh, any bigotry, prejudice, racism, be not institutionalized or institutionalized. The way to break that entire structure and have it crumble and fall down to the ground is the people in that same demographic, that same, even you can be in the same household, the same family, the same religion, language, they speak against it and say, no, you are wrong. This is evil. Allah hates this. You're going to be liable for this on the day of judgment. And they don't let that person get any favorability for using and perpetuating that behavior. But how common that is. And I'm not saying this because this is the only, ethnicity, nationality that this behavior is absent from. You know, the same people who claim victim when they're experiencing the quote unquote short end of the stick, or the bad end of the blame, and we're not bad end of the blame, but they're getting and receiving this prejudice and bigotry. They're very quick to ask for allies and ask for quote unquote solidarity. But as soon as they see a population that they disdain and they disregard, or they are discriminant against, or they're prejudiced against, or they show xenophobia against, fear of another, category of people, where is that value? If they claim they're fair people, if they claim, Wallahu la yuhibbu al-zalimin, Allah doesn't love the wrongdoers. Allah doesn't, Wallahu la yuhibbu al-mu'tadin, Allah doesn't love the transgressors. Okay, so that behavior should be avoided in every moment of your life. You don't get to choose, in this XYZ category of people, I'm gonna practice dhulm, and I'm gonna practice oppression and injustice and prejudice, and I'm gonna transgress against. That's not a value. You understand? So anyway, this was a little longer than I wanted in time, although a lot more could be said. But this girl, imagine if she's saying this to me, whether she knows I understand the language or not. What would an adult have done? If she thinks I don't understand the language, adult would have also thought the same thing. And then second, even if they don't think I understand the language, Allah sees, Allah hears everything, Allah knows everything. So this all came from the lack of muraqabah of Allah. When someone doesn't know Allah is watching and hear them in action. You can say in theory Allah sees everything, hears everything, but when you choose to disobey Him and violate His laws and commandments, then this is going to be the outcome of that. You don't do it just because the person hears and understands what you're saying. You do it, why? Because Allah Azza wa Jal, وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ رَقِيبًا, Allah is watchful over all things. Another is, now uh, if no one from this population or this ethnic group, if I can give another story, maybe to make it sound as if I I, I have seen people who figuratively play both sides of the fence. When they receive this treatment, they cry victim, but they also are the same ones to what's it called? To pass it on and aim it at others. So this was in November of 2025. I was in Boston, Massachusetts, in a particular masjid, which I'm not gonna mention the name because I don't want bad. Uh, I don't want tuhma, or I don't want the shom and the accusation of bad behavior to give a bad image to that masjid, because this bad behavior it reflects the individual, right? So anyway, there was a person who hails from my same region of origin. He's Somali and very recent in America. He came to America while this, ICE vigilante violence is going on. And he had a conversation with a gentleman who his ancestors have been here for a long time. He's Afro-Caribbean. And I don't know if he's a revert himself or he's second, third generation Muslim. So the Somali guy who did not have a proficiency of English, because what his words are going to imply, are not, they don't indicate that. So he was like, yeah, the same thing that they used to do to enslave Africans here before they're doing to my people now. Any person who has a 2-minute rundown of what transatlantic chattel slavery was would be like, yo, you tripping. So he was explaining on that side how things are getting hard for immigrants and da da da. But in that same community, there is such a disdain of, not all, I'm saying there are individuals who identify as Somali and perpetuate this behavior, who have such a disdain for African American, no matter if they're the best of Muslim or they could be any other race, any other religion. I'm not justifying it on religion. I'm just saying if you have a fraternity with your Muslim brother, generally you're a lot more cautious. But there is such a disdain of them that they say more blatant racist things about African Americans than even white bigots say. But when they are being squeezed by the same arm of white supremacist power establishment forces, they want to cry victim and say, we're being treated, these guys were being treated like the same way as slaves were before. So anyway, the thing I'm saying is, going back to the incident, if there were people who said, you know what, before I choose and fraternize and associate and I akin myself with my own country's men, tribesmen, culture, nationality, I'm gonna stand for values. Whoever upholds those values, I'm going to assist them in that. And whoever is opposition to those values, I would disavow with them. Then it would be a much better world, and it would be much more accurate in understanding how to remedy these issues. If someone says I'm a person of truth, I'm a person of honesty, and I'll only associate myself with people of honesty. I'm a person of fairness and justice and equity, I will disavow myself with people of injustice. Then it's different. But when you roll with your peoples for khair and shar, good and bad, haqq and batil, truth and falsehood, then it's a lot different. And I also got another lesson that maybe because I had these clothes on, America only sees a black man as an athlete and not as a intellectual, excuse me. I mean, this is not my first time realizing it. But now look, this poor innocent girl got she got taught this at a young age, and people will be, wow, how could a little girl be taught this? Why? Because the bad habits of adults, when adults do not hold adults accountable, فلولا كان من القرون من قبلكم أولو بقية ينهون عن الفساد في الأرض. In Surah Hud, after Allah mentioned how many nations came, the people of Nuh alayhi salam, and Hud and Salih, and Ibrahim and Lut alayhim salam, and Shu'aib and Musa and Fir'aun. Allah, He said, why were not in those past nations people of intelligence who, what was the sign of their intelligence? They prevented evil in the land. So some of us, when we hear this subject, we think, yeah, it starts with the hakim, the political ruler, the head of state. They're the biggest dhalim. Yeah, it's unlikely that the head of state is going to stop all their generations of oppression when one common layman talks to them. I'm not saying you should ignore advising them, but that's a lot of people's roar cry and political their political activist energy is for the ruler. But in their own household, in their own family, in their own closed doors, where people will pay a lot more consideration to what they have to say when they see practices of injustice, of prejudice, of double standards, of transgressions, of dehumanizing free people, and taking away the rights Allah gave them and their integrity and their ird and their reputation. In that circumstance, why do they not act on this and stop the evil that's there? Tell them. And if they don't listen once, twice, and thrice, and four, you don't give up changing evil and say, oh, I tried, the person didn't listen. Your job is not results driven, right? Your job is means driven. Every messenger, their da'wah was means driven. They didn't have guidance in their hand, but they fulfilled the obligation upon them to convey the message of guidance, right? Your job is to إنما عليك البلاغ وعلينا الحساب. Convey. Allah is the one who's going to take account. So anyway, that's why and then I'll do this with the intention of reward. Although we hate the evil, but do it with the intention of reward. Because even I heard an incident where somebody who had accompanied the late scholar who passed, I believe, in 2001 or 2000, I think, no, 99, Shaykh Abdul Aziz bin Abdullah bin Bas, that somebody came asking for a letter interceding on his pardon. He was wrongfully detained in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So Shaykh bin Bas could not write, rahimahullah. He was unable to see with his eye, but Allah gave him much insight of the heart. So he asked the scribe next to him to write this letter. So the person next to him said, Sheikh, you already tried conceding on this person's behalf and what's it called, asking for his pardon and interceding 100 times. Imagine how driven and how dedicated and committed you have to be to try the same result for another person. You have your freedom, but you're vouching for another person 100 times, and 100 times it was denied. And what did the Sheikh answer? He said, our job in doing this intercession, asking for this person's pardon and release, is not because of the result. But he said, the Prophet ﷺ said in the hadith, Ishfa'u tu'jaru, that give intercession on behalf of those who are wrongfully detained or those who have been treated unjustly, you will be rewarded. So may Allah accept from us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.